The Health Secretary Matt Hancocks has acknowledged the enormous and terrible consequences of the Contaminated Blood scandal, but stopped short of apologising for government failures.
He is the first serving minister to give evidence at the Infected Blood inquiry, which is looking into the worst treatment disaster in the history of the NHS.
Up to 30,000 patients contracted hepatitis C, HIV and other deadly diseases after being given infected blood products back in the 1970s and 1980s.
Well, much of it was imported from America, where high-risk groups like prisoners and drug addicts were paid to donate their plasma. As a result, nearly 3,000 people have died and many more are living with chronic health conditions.
Well, Rachel Hepworth is in London for the hearing. Rachel, what did Mr Hancocks have to say?
Well, the focus of his testimony today was on what the government has or indeed has not done to support those who've been impacted by this scandal. Campaigners will tell you that it has never been enough. He did, however, acknowledge that when he became the Health Secretary, he was aware that mistakes had been made.
In my role as Secretary of State, I acknowledge the pain and the suffering, not only of the errors that led to this harm on people's lives, but also a sense that redress wasn't properly considered, and that people felt their voices weren't heard.
Well, those voices have been trying to be heard for a very long time now, and indeed some of those affected were here to listen to the evidence today. Throughout this inquiry, we've heard really heartbreaking testimony from those who've lost loved ones, including very young children in some cases, and people who have unwittingly infected their partners with HIV and hepatitis C. Among those who've died, Steve Diamond from Broadstairs in Kent, who succumbed to organ failure in 2018. His wife, Su Gorman, has long campaigned for better provision for victims.
His very last words as he left this earth were, "They must repent." And I promised him he would, and I don't know if he heard me at that stage. But yes, I want to see contrition, which is what he wanted. I want an admission that something very badly went wrong. And I want explanations as to why it's taken 40 years.
Well, she's been fighting to increase annual support payments and for full compensation as well, like many other of the victims. The government has indeed taken the first step towards that, announcing a compensation framework that will be implemented once this inquiry has finished. However, that won't be until next year at the very earliest. Too late, say campaigners, for many of the victims who very sadly continue to die at a rate of 1 every 3 days.
Rachel Hepworth in London, thank you very much.